All right, let's make this quick. I could be masturbating right now.
In a city where anything can happen, in a time of tradition, there were three filmmakers with nothing in common. They thought they had it all figured out. They don't just follow the movies, they make them. Alexander Pavlak, Mario Silvas, and Jamal Alexander are the makers on film.
Hello and welcome to Makers on Film. I am your resident writer-director, Alexander. With me is our resident actor, Jamal Alexander.
Yo.
And typically with us is Mario I. Silvas, but he's stuck in an airport in Brooklyn, apparently.
I mean, I think that's a crock. He's just avoiding watching the actual movie.
It was pretty rough this time around.
Again, I could not get through the whole thing. I saw the first 10 minutes and then I just started skipping parts.
Remember Mario when he was talking about, I think it was Deathbed, that he couldn't watch it all in one sitting. He had to do it in 20-minute increments.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did this time around. I watched it. I watched it on YouTube because I couldn't find it anywhere else. It's not even. I don't think it's even on Amazon.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, and it was split up into like 9 sections, and I watched like the first 3, and I went and cleaned out the fish tank because I just couldn't handle any more of that movie.
That's how bad it is. Cleaning a fish tank is more enjoyable.
It kind of was.
Well, I mean, how bad is a movie that they actually dub over English actors? Actors speaking in English.
Well, they did
I
that
mean,
with Deathbed, and for most part, I expect that kind of from movies from maybe 1982 back, like 70s mostly, and a little bit in the early 80s. I expect a lot of dubbing for some reason, and I don't know why that is, but I expect it. But yeah, this one for 90s, the sound should have been a lot better, so I don't know why they dubbed it like that.
because it's a half-assed movie that nobody likes.
Oh my God, yeah, I can kind of see that.
Like even they knew it was terrible.
Well, have you ever seen The Room? The Tommy Wiseau film. We've talked about that on the show before.
Again, not something I could watch all the way through,
Yeah, this movie.
but yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah, this movie kind of had that feel where the dialogue was just so poorly written that some of the stuff that they said felt very empty. Like there was I don't know if it was the quality of the actors that they didn't do the work that they're supposed to do to fully round out their characters in their mind, or if it's just bad writing. It felt like everything they said was kind of just empty and flat. It was very stereo. It was very much a stereotype or a one-dimensional character.
I think it's a combination of those two things. I think it's bad acting and bad writing. Everything about it is just bad altogether, from the very concept on. Like it's a terrible movie from when it starts. Like terrible shots, terrible music. It looks like it was made 20 to 30 years earlier, when really it's a movie from the 90s. If you show that movie to anybody else, they would not tell you, and without giving them any context, they would not tell you that movie was made within the last 20 to 30 years.
It looked like it could have been done the same year that Deathbed was made.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
yeah. And the the woman who was the lead towards the end, her acting got a little better when she was supposed to be like scared and stuff. And then there was a fortune teller character. I'm not really sure what she was, a gypsy or whatever. I think she did a good job. Her acting ability was really good. But everybody else, especially the husband and Raoul the plumber, who gets a special credit in the opening sequence about him being Raoul the plumber and introducing whoever as Raoul the plumber. His acting was horrible, and
Oh,
and and the husband's acting just seemed very over the top and very cliche.
yeah, I got that from the first. Like, I saw like the first 10 minute section of the movie, and as soon as he came on screen and really people started talking, because there are two other characters who appear right at the beginning of the film and they don't say a damn thing. that pretty much set up how bad the rest of the movie is going to be. But as soon as people started talking, I just completely like checked out. Like that little bit of hope I had for the movie being halfway watch bearable, because that's the gauge we're going on, not watchable, just bearable.
Hmm.
Yeah, as soon as they started, I heard the dialogue and the way it was presented. I just like, no, this is not going to turn out well at all.
Well, it's the thing that lost me, and maybe this is being shallow, maybe it's not. The part where I got lost, where the movie just lost me, was at the very beginning when the first couple start having sex on the floor of the kitchen,
Yeah.
and the guy takes off his shirt and his back's all hairy.
Oh yeah, yeah. That is an immediate turn off for the rest of this movie.
There was his hairy back. He was wearing tidy whities, and the sex lasted for like 30 seconds.
When it's not really sex; it's just him kind of pushing her across the floor while smothering her.
she, she should have had mops attached to her knees.
I know. Oh God, it was terrible. God, absolutely terrible.
And yeah, that pretty much set the tone. That whole opening sequence of those two rushing back to their apartment for sex, the lackluster sex, and the and whatever else that opening sequence failed to offer the audience. That just really set the tone for the rest of the movie. And though it did get a little better at the end, it really wasn't enough to get over that hump of the beginning.
If I could sum up my criticism of this movie into a single sort of point, it's recently we watched a movie called Rubber, and Rubber knew exactly what it was. It was a silly concept taken and tried to have fun with it and do it in a way that was both satirical and funny and very self-aware. It knew what it was and was trying to have fun with it. This movie is the same thing except done badly.
Well, I think it doesn't understand what it is. Maybe
I
that's it.
I, I
Like,
think I think it's trying to go for the same kind of like campy, we know it's a terrible and ridiculous plot, and we're going to make a funny movie based off of that. And we're going to throw all these like different elements from horror films or whatever in it, the way that Rubber did. But Rubber actually accomplishes that and does it very well. This movie takes all those concepts and just does it terribly.
yeah.
It shoots for the same sort of appeal, but it's horrible. It misses horribly. This may be the worst film I've seen while we've done this show.
Oh,
It is the worst film I've seen. This surpasses Laser Mission.
yeah, yeah. I think I might have to concede that as well. That this may be the worst movie I think I've ever seen.
Uh, wow, you've ever seen or just for the show?
Yes. Well, because Laser Mission I always dubbed as the worst movie I've ever seen. Like anytime anybody's like, "Oh, Showgirls is the worst movie ever," I'm like, "No, there's Laser Mission."
Showgirls, Showgirls at least had boobs.
Showgirls may be in the basement, but Laser Mission is has taken a shovel and has gone way further down. And I think this movie has surpassed that. So
If there
this is
was a if there was a sinkhole underneath the basement, you would have to get to the bottom of that and then keep digging.
yes. Yes, below the basement, below the sub basement, and below the parking structure underneath the basement, and
Yeah.
below the sewage.
Yeah, yeah, have you ever seen those documentaries or movies where it's set in France and they're down in the catacombs?
Yeah.
This movie wishes it was in the catacombs. If I'm going with my rating system on this, I could have masturbated instead.
Yes, you could have spent the whole day masturbating and probably been more enjoyable than watching the movie.
Man, I would have used my hands instead.
What do you normally use? Or do I not want to know?
You don't want? Do you? Do you?
I retract my question.
Exactly. I mean, it's just so bad. It's harder to put in words.
It's just it.
And I saw and to let you fast know, I saw about a tenth of this movie.
Yeah. To my understanding, yes.
I saw a tenth of this movie, and that's how bad it is. I could not force myself, no matter how much I tried. And believe me, I got pretty hammered trying. Uh, I could not make myself sit through this movie.
Well, I think when we watched Deathbed, uh, I think I said somewhere along the way that I wish Deathbed would have been like a guy, buys the bed maybe at like an auction from the house or something like an estate auction, takes it back to his place, and then the bed kind of fucks with him and he has to bring people in for the bed to eat. I thought that might have been a cool idea to do the deathbed to make it seem more realistic. And then I started seeing those elements that I wish were in Deathbed in this movie. The refrigerator started fucking with the people's dreams. They started hallucinating. There was some sort of weird thing. I don't know if the landlord to the building rented that apartment purposely so people would be eaten by the refrigerator or not. They gave no clue to that, and I wish they would have at the very end. That would have been a nice little closer for it. But it's like, you know, it's like it had those elements that I kind of wish were in Deathbed until I actually saw them in this movie. Then I'm like, wow, I can understand why Deathbed went the way it did because these don't seem to be working. And it really didn't work because it was a refrigerator, because you would think, hallucinations and weird dreams would come from a bed, not from a refrigerator. Like the refrigerator thing should have been a little bit different.
Yeah, it's just
Oh, by the way, to illustrate how bad and how bored I was with this film, about after the couple rented the apartment and and started moving in and stuff, that's about the time I started taking away from the movie and I started looking into seeing if I could figure out what make and model that refrigerator was.
okay. What make and model was it?
It is a 1957 Borg Warner Narge.
And how did you come across that, by the way?
Um, it was very difficult because I could barely make out the letters on the refrigerator, and they kind of close up on them, but the copy that I had, the definition was so low that it was hard to make out what the letters were. But there were five letters on the front of the refrigerator that say Narge, Norge. And I just started looking up. I knew it looked like something from the 50s, so I just looked up refrigerators from the 50s until I saw one that had the same handles and the same kind of trim work on it.
Yeah. You would think that somebody from that company, unless that company went bankrupt and out of business, would see that, see how it's used in this film, and go, nope, copyright infringement, that sort of thing. They're not authorized.
I didn't look up to see if the company was still in business or not, but I don't think they are. It doesn't sound like a familiar name to me, not like Whirlpool or Maytag or whatever. But
Because apparently you're an expert on just home appliances. That's awesome.
well, when you own a house, you kind of learn these things. But it's like,
Touche. Touche.
and I did own a house back in Ohio, which was funny because at one point it says somewhere in Ohio, and it perked my ears up a little bit. I'm like, hey, I'm from somewhere in Ohio.
That was the high point of this film, apparently.
That was for me. But that refrigerator also comes in pink, and I think it came in the avocado green that was very popular in the 50s.
I know that the color of which you speak, and it is just absolutely sickening to me.
That green?
Yeah, that shade of green. Oh my god, it's just
Oh,
terrible.
the pink is no genius maneuver either.
Oh yeah,
It's like
and
it's like pink, yellow, and that avocado green, that sunrise yellow or whatever it's called, that lemon yellow. It's like almost primary colors, except for that pink. The pink is just it's not even like milk of magnesia pink. It's some sort of weird muted pink it's just like a salmon, I guess.
I've chalked it up to back in the 50s. Acid was regularly used in therapy,
Uh-huh.
so I figured everybody back then was on acid, and therefore the color schemes and everything they liked back then, as far as color palettes, was just based off of what looked good on acid.
Yeah, that actually might explain a lot of the 50s now that you mention it, the way cars looked and the color schemes they used for some of them. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
I'm not terribly against the way cars look, but yeah, those were there are a few good ones. I mean,
Um, cars
they're still clunky, but
Yeah. Cars of the 50s were like pants from the 70s. They just had huge embellishments on them that they didn't need just for status and appearance. So cars had the big fins on the back, and
Yeah,
they were almost twice as long as what they are today. And it's like all the chrome and all those kind of features, though, look cool. They were kind of unnecessary. And I think that kind of stemmed because if you look at the cars from the 40s, they're very streamlined. Whereas cars from the 50s, they look like they added like another 150 pounds, 200 pounds to the car just in accents, which again, like I say, look cool, just are kind of unnecessary.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of their view of the year 2000 or whatever,
Kind
where
of.
yeah, like for instance, take the Jetsons, where everything's kind of rounded in that sort of finny kind of way, like their idea of what modern or futuristic look like.
Yeah.
Man, were they off! Man, were they off!
A little bit. So, huh. Let's see. I have some notes here. I'm just going over them right now. Yeah, the bad editing, the bad ADR.
Oh, the ADR is just absolutely terrible.
Yeah. I did like them using the old refrigerator advertisements in the opening titles. I thought that was kind of a cool idea.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they were very close up on them, so they could get away with using them without having to worry about like copyright, which I'm not sure copyright would have lasted that long from the 50s and 60s to the 90s. But because back then copyright was different, it didn't stick with you forever. It ran out after a while, and I think I just thought it was kind of cool because it was an older refrigerator that they used, and they used kind of they interlaced old advertisements with whatever shots of the city that they were doing over the title sequence, and I thought that was kind of cool. But it's like there was tiny little elements in this that were cool, and everything else just kind of overpowered it.
Well, again, this is the attempt. This is a bad version of Rubber. This is where they were trying to make something that was cool in that sort of self-aware kind of like self-deprecating. We know what this is, and it's going to be funny. This is that attempt done badly,
Yeah, yeah,
and so there's little bits of that come out.
mhm, yeah. Well, another thing that I really disliked was the sound design. And for people who are playing along at home, sound design is when you add background and ambient noise and other sound effects to a scene to make it more full. Like one of the scenes, the guy opens up a bottle of soda and starts drinking it, and it's just a very generic gulping noise that we hear, and it's very, very loud. It's like they should have like taken down the volume on it a little bit because it was just very noticeable and very in your face. And it a lot of the sounds that they used sounded like they got them off of like YouTube, like people who put out stuff like that for free for filmmakers or for people who do radio shows or whatever. Like you can find that stuff on YouTube, but it's very cheesy sounding, and it sounds like everything that they did at full volume and didn't care about how good or how bad it sounded.
Well, I think over the course of making this film, a lot of people did decide, this is didn't notice that this is probably going to end up terribly, and just kind of, checked out, went half-assed. That's beyond just whoever was, whoever they got cheaply to do this, and probably just did a shitty job.
Probably, yeah. And although for anybody who hasn't seen this film and wants to know how bad this film is, one of the lines of dialogue that stuck out to me. So they move from Ohio to New York, and the husband Steve gets a job. And Steve one day tries sucking up to the boss, and the boss kind of yells at him. And I like the boss that they had. He's kind of Lumberg like, and I don't know if I think Lumberg came after this. What was that called? Office Space. I think the movie Office Space came after this, so they weren't trying to parody Lumberg specifically, but he had a Lumberg feel to him. And the guy kind of starts sucking up to the boss, and the boss is like, "I don't like people who suck up to me." And then like two other employees come up and they're like, "Yeah, you got to learn your space in your place in this job. You're the low man on the totem pole." And then the other guy says the phrase, and I quote, "You have to eat doo doo from everyone here."
Hey,
And I'm like, "Oh my God, he said doo doo." I'm like, was this made to try to scare 12-year-olds? So, we have to make it PG-13.
Who actually that brings up a very good question. Who is this movie made for? I
That
mean, what is the target audience on something like this?
that is actually a very good question because it's not gory enough to get like, teenagers. It's not like a fun gory movie that's like, sure it's low budget and sure it's kind of cheesy, but at least we're going to like, try to scar you with our imagery. It never did that. So that wouldn't bring in like teenagers. Um, it's I've seen like the box art for this. It's VHS, so it might go directly to video. So if it's sitting in the video thing, it's basically anybody who plays video roulette. Anybody who's just going to grab that box and be all like, "Huh, a killer refrigerator. This will probably be bad. Let's see how far through this we can go."
This movie is literally made with the bin right next to the cash register at a gas station in mind.
I was going to say supermarket, but gas station works too. Yeah.
Yeah, they that was their target with this film. Because it's not made for us the way Rubber is made for us, you and me, who are like movie buffs, and we get that, and we think it's funny. Or people like Mario who just like bad movies.
Yeah.
This is so bad that even Mario wouldn't watch it.
Apparently that's why he's quote unquote stuck in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We both believe that.
Yeah. Well, I looked into this and let me get back to it. I went to see what else the director did. The director directed seven things. The last thing he directed was in 2004, so his career kind of spanned it some time, but he directed an episode of a TV series called You Wrote It, You Watch It, which
What?
may or may not have been on Comedy Central. The title sounds familiar, but I don't think I ever saw it.
It sounds like something fans write and then somebody directs, and then you have to watch it.
Well, looking at it, Jon Stewart, Michael Ian Black, um, a couple other looks like comedians. Yeah, there's a bunch of comedians who were in this, and it looks like Jon Stewart was the host of this. So, this looks like it might have been for Comedy Central or might have been like cable or something. One of those things like back in the 90s when cable just started really kind of hitting big, they were just buying TV shows to put on basic cable. So this might have been a basic cable TV show. But then he must have befriended Jon Stewart because he does an episode of the Jon Stewart Show in 1993. He directs a couple
Well,
episodes.
Jon Stewart's just a nice guy. I mean, Jon Stewart is just a nice man and gives to charity regularly, and this could just be another case of that.
It could be, and it could have been just a thing where like, hey, I got this show. I need somebody to direct an episode. What are you doing today?
Yeah.
And I'm sure this guy wasn't doing anything that day. But he also did a couple episodes of The Adventures of Pete and Pete. He did a couple episodes of Reading Rainbow, which I think might be the highlight of his career. He did a short movie called Marissa, Where Art Thou? And a movie called Weapons of Mass Destruction. 2004, that was the last movie he did. And it looks like nobody of note is in it.
That's the last movie he did, and now he's probably somewhere for locked up for touching somebody. I don't know, but this seems like it comes from this comes from God. I don't know what even kind of film environment would produce this. Like what? Whew. Like
Um,
I can't. What I'm saying is I can't visualize like the influences that went into this. Like who is this homaging? Like who is this
Speaking to?
well, where is this inspired from?
Um, well, I'm looking at the people who wrote this, and one guy who worked on this, as far as the writing goes, only worked on Refrigerator. Another guy worked on all those other TV shows that I talked about, the Jon Stewart Show, You Wrote It, You Watch It, that kind of stuff. And then the last guy that I'm looking at here,
You know, that
Only
says to me that that one guy probably had more talent than this movie is giving him credit for, and he got a break, and then that's how the other ones or the director got his shot at Stewart.
it looks like if three people get credit for the story, and then one person who also got credit for the story was the person who wrote it. Nicholas Jacobs was the writer. Or he was also the director, so the director writer. But it's like it sounds like maybe him and two of his friends are sitting around smoking pot or dropping acid or whatever, spitballing, and it was probably something that made them laugh, an idea of a refrigerator eating people, and they wrote it down. And then when they came out of their drunken pot fused haze, realized that now they have to do this.
Yeah, like we put all that. Like I did not just spend 8 hours of my life working on this not to do it. We're doing this.
Exactly. The execution of it felt like something that they all forced each other to do. Like one of those things like, oh, let's make a movie. So they write this movie and they laugh about it and they wake up the next morning and they're like, oh shit, this is what we came up with.
I, j- you know what made me ask like who inspired this? I was gonna say Deathbed probably inspired this, but Deathbed was a lost film until 02 or 04.
I think 04, something like that.
Yeah, so
Well,
Deathbed wasn't around.
it wasn't. It wasn't. It was an underground cult thing. It's something that like the videotape of it like circulated. It was like a bootleg copy. So maybe these guys saw it, maybe they didn't. It's highly unlikely that they did. But like if you look it up on IMDb, like IMDb will do a thing where it's like kind of like how Amazon does it. It's like people who like this also like these things.
Yeah.
So there are six movies here that it also suggests for you to watch if you liked Refrigerator. And the first one is Killer Condom, 1996.
Okay, so this probably inspired that.
Probably. Let's see. Monstered,
What year?
2003.
Oh my god.
A serial killer mutates with a chemical inside a sewer to become a monster made of human waste, just as the FBI and police are onto him. Microwave Massacre, 1983. Terror Eyes, 1989. A frustrated advertising executive is confused to receive a job assignment from her boss to write the screenplay to a horror film, recruiting the help of her friends on a weekend camping trip. Ugh, that doesn't even sound like good. And then Mystic in Bali, which 1981. Bob,
Mystic in Bali, as in like in Bali, the place Bali.
I'm guessing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that kind of looks like it. Researching a book takes her to Bali and the black magic cult of Leek. Kathy meets an evil witch which promises to train her in the dark arts. Yeah, that one actually kind of sounds interesting, but all the other ones are just like weird and low budget and never heard of by anyone before.
This is what happens when you purposely try to do so bad that it's good and fail at it. That's what I
Yeah,
feel that list is.
yeah, I think it
Because
is.
even those movies have their own genre, and every genre has its bad films, just like it has its good films, and these just happen to be its bad films.
Mhm. So yeah, there's not much to say about this movie that's good.
Yeah, it again, it's just something that steals away from masturbating time.
Well, I think we've learned our lesson and we don't let Mario pick themes for movies.
Yeah, I'm. Why was this picked as a theme to begin with?
it it sounded fun to begin with, and some of the movies that we did were kind of fun. I mean, Killer Tomatoes was fun, Rubber was fun. I'll even give you Deathbed. Deathbed was kind of one of those movies that was so bad it was good. Like,
That bed was just bad. I just hated it. Like basically the movie that you picked and I picked, and therefore none of the ones Mario picked
Yeah,
were.
he didn't do too good a job this month.
It sucked. I mean, like we're still like he had a second pick next month. He's not getting it anymore.
Well, no, I have the second pick next
Oh,
month.
you had the second pick. All right.
Yeah,
I
because
thought we were gonna do that by consensus anyway.
I don't know.
Let's do it by consensus. It'd be kind of fun. The three of us collaborating like that.
Well, we could do that for the last movie then, if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay. So while watching this movie, I got about halfway through, and there's some talk about the woman becoming pregnant, the Irene becoming pregnant, and then the gypsy woman or whatever she was, the fortune teller, tells her something about pregnancy from evil is bad or some such nonsense. And at this point, I'm starting to wonder if she's going to have a little refrigerator baby.
Eh,
And after seeing what they chose to be the ending, I actually kind of would have liked to have seen a little refrigerator baby.
eh,
Because you can go on to like Amazon or you can go over to the mall and get those little refrigerators that hold like probably a 6 pack of cans. You could probably find some that are even smaller than that, like 4 cans or something, and that would have been funny. And that would have been cool to see like them put some time and effort to make the little baby refrigerator kind of look like the full size refrigerator.
eh.
Especially since they did have sex in front of the refrigerator, I thought there might have been some sort of, evil transference going on there, but no, they didn't do that.
Eh.
It almost felt like maybe one of the influences from this movie was like Rosemary's Baby.
I didn't get that at all.
Well, I just kind of recently watched it, maybe like, less than a year ago, but it's like she moves to the city, she gets pregnant, her apartment is evil. No, the apartment's not evil. There's a cult in the apartment, and the cult starts trying to invoke, I guess, an evil spirit into the baby or some such nonsense. So it kind of had that kind of feel to it, and I thought that's where they were going with it, was that it's something about her baby, but like it was one of those things like they started to talk about, and then they lost interest in it and just decided to do, kill the monster at the end kind of a thing, which they didn't even do.
Yeah, like the monster wins in this, I believe, because I read the write up too. I because I wasn't going to finish it.
Well, how the movie ends, if you've missed it, and spoiler alert, um, in instead of killing the refrigerator, two out of the five people left in the apartment at the end escape the apartment and they leave. And then it's the wife and the plumber. And then the wife and the plumber, the next thing we see is them backstage of some sort of dance contest. And they kiss each other and they run off on stage because it's their turn.
Wait, the wife and the plumber?
Yeah. What was it? Raul? Julian? It was Raul. Whatever the plumber's name was. Yeah, Raul the plumber, who was one step away from being Mario from Super Mario. The plumber and the wife, Irene, got together. And I can kind of see that because he was a bit of her savior because he got her out of the apartment, but he kind of let everybody else die.
Oy.
And then after that, we see the landlord uh, cleaning up the apartment. And I thought at some point he was going to go over to the refrigerator and be all like, "It won't be long," and then kind of like tap it on the side or something, like he was, like he knew the refrigerator was evil because he knows the refrigerator is evil because he saw that at the beginning when he gave the couple that apartment for $200. But it's like I kind of thought he was going to do something like that, like he was the guardian of the refrigerator, like he was the guy who brought it food or something, and they never did that. And it's just like everything seemed to like fall flat. There was no real closure to the movie.
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of other things that were lacking in this movie. For instance, consistency. Well, no, it was consistently bad throughout the whole thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, there's all these things that they started and never, did anything with.
Yeah, it's hard for me to actually begin and like It's just a terrible film all the way around to the point where like I'm a fairly dedicated film buff.
Yeah,
I've never walked out of a theater. I know you and Mario have apparently.
a couple of times. I sometimes enjoy bad movies, and I have a morbid curiosity to see how they end. But every once in a while, I have a film I can't finish.
I have never walked out of a theater before.
Hmm.
The fact that I could not make it past like collectively I've probably seen more than 10 minutes, about 15 minutes of the film
Okay.
because I did it I because I skimmed through parts of it.
Hmm.
But the fact that I can't finish this film tells you how bad it is.
Oh yeah,
And by the way, it makes absolutely no sense that Raul's the one that survives.
I know, right? Like I can kind of understand the husband being eaten because he was kind of a jerk, and he felt like he was really kind of falling under the influence of the refrigerator. But yeah, I don't see why Raul was the one to survive.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of hoping for the fortune teller because she was the only really good actress in the whole, only good actor in the whole bunch.
Is that a thing now where they don't want to be called actresses anymore? They want to be actors?
I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody realized that I wasn't just talking about the women in the film, that everybody in the film was worse than that gypsy woman. I don't even know if she was gypsy. I think she actually might have been some sort of Latino, but the point of the story is whatever her character was, she was good at
That doesn't sound racist at
it.
all. She's some sort of Latino. I don't know.
Well, I mean, she's from New York, so she's probably not Mexican. She's probably either Cuban or Puerto Rican.
What he's trying to say is one of the ones that probably swim.
Well, I mean, Puerto Rico is part of America. They can come here legally, so they don't have to swim.
They do. Well,
No, but
yeah, Puerto Rico. Yeah, I had my nations confused, but yes, Puerto Rico is a territory.
yeah, but it's like Cuba and the Dominican Republic, I think, are the ones who have to fudge the paperwork.
Yeah, let's put it, politely like that.
Yes, but also this movie missed a golden opportunity to poignantly use the "Is your refrigerator running?" joke.
This is true. How often are you going to get, you know, a movie based around a refrigerator?
Yeah, and the refrigerator was animated. It actually moved around and stuff. So I would have used that. I would have put that line in there just for the trailer, so you can have somebody say, "Is your refrigerator running?" and then see, the refrigerator chasing somebody around the apartment. That would have been my trailer right there.
Uh, well, just ahead of time. No, you're not doing a movie about a refrigerator.
No, I have no desire. This is the pinnacle, I think, of refrigerator-based movies. The only thing missing from this was somebody climbing inside of it to escape a nuclear blast.
Uh,
That is the
that's
only thing
what.
they could have made this movie worse, I think.
No, I'll still take that any day of the week, as opposed to this.
Uh, you gotta have to admit though that was pretty bad. And I saw an article, I didn't read it. I just saw the headline that said that there might be some actual scientific validity to him being in a refrigerator to escape a nuclear blast. But even if it diminishes the radiation a level so you can live, there's still the shock wave, there's still the heat from it, and there's still the fact that it got flung. And when it crash landed, he probably would have died.
Maybe I'm not as emotionally. Maybe it's because I'm not as emotionally invested in Indiana Jones because they were fun when I was a kid. I don't see really the appeal anymore. I
Um,
mean, it's still a fun character, I think, but I'm not fully vested in him. Uh, like
it's a nostalgia thing. It's they're trying to capitalize, especially on the original movie, and to some degree the third one, which is a lot of people's favorites too. They're trying to
which one?
capitalize
Which one was the third one again?
the Holy Grail.
Is that the one where somebody's heart gets taken out?
No, that's the second one, the Temple of Doom.
It's not the one with the Nazis.
The Nazis are in the first and the third one, but not in the second one.
Okay.
So so it's like they're trying to capitalize on the nostalgia of that. And I understood what they were trying to do with Crystal Skull, and I actually kind of liked a lot of it. Like everything after that first sequence was kind of interesting, and I like the idea that instead of using a religious uh, icon and lore, that they went with more of an alien thing. I thought that was kind of cool because if you think about it, the way those lores are put together, and crystal skulls are a real thing, and they're not as big as the one used in the Indiana Jones movie, but they are kind of shaped that way, and they are a single piece of crystal, not formed or manipulated or chiseled or whatever. And people do think that there are like 12 of them and that, they have some sort of mystical alien, uh, unworldly presence to them. And in a way, God and the power of the the Ark or those Death Stones or the Holy Grail has an unworldly power to it. So a lot of people complain that it was aliens, and I don't understand why Aliens is worse than the religious stuff that we saw that is almost equally as unbelievable. So that's the part that I don't agree with when people complain about the movie. The refrigerator thing and Shia LaBeouf and the fact that it's set in the 50s are kind of the things that I don't much care about it.
Wait, what's your what's the timeline fudged a bit for the 50s? I'm not entirely up to date on that.
Well, if you actually pay attention to the Indiana Jones series, the first one is like 1945. The second one is 19. No, wait. The first one is 19, yeah, 45. The next one is 43, and then the one after that is like 44 or 46 or something. So for some reason they're done out of order, which is really kind of weird, but that's the way they chose to do it. And since Harrison Ford is so old, they realized they couldn't do it in the 40s with the other films. So they thought about, who's another bad guy and what's another fun era. So they did it in the 50s, and they did it with the Russians, which if Harrison Ford last did Indiana Jones probably 20 some years ago. So yeah, they fudged the timeline to because he looks way older.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he should. They should have done this in the 70s to come close to accurately depicting how old Harrison Ford is.
Yeah, they could have even, done mid to late 60s, and people probably would have given it that, 15 years, maybe dyed his hair a little bit so it's more salt and pepper than it is just gray. And I
Yeah.
think people would have gone with that, but yeah, with the way they did that just 10-ish years later, it seemed a little off. Because they did a lot of jokes about him being old too. Like at one point he does something like with his whip and he's like, that used to be easier.
Well, of course they did jokes about him being old. Because when's the last time you saw a movie about an 80s action star that didn't have old jokes in it? Everything that Sylvester Stallone is in now references how old he is.
Liam Neeson doesn't, but I don't think he's quite that old, is he?
Well, no, he's a good no, he's more than he's a decade and a half younger than Stallone is, and he's not really an '80s action hero though.
Well, he's not an action hero from the 80s, but he
He's an action hero now.
yeah, but he did some movies. Did he do, or was he more 90s? He was more 90s, wasn't he?
He was more '90s. In the '80s, he was still coming up, and I think he did a couple of like fantasy films. That's about it. Like his first big role was like in a fantasy film. I can't remember what the fuck it was though.
Yeah, Darkman was 1990, so yeah, he's more of a product of the 90s. Although he did do the Deadpool. When did Deadpool come out? Was that also the 90s?
I don't think I've seen the Deadpool.
That's the Dirty Harry movie.
Oh no, that was '80s. '80s.
Yeah, because that's like his first real big thing in America that he did. Liam Neeson. Yeah,
Sometimes I forget, like the titles for the Dirty Harry stuff are just like all out there.
yeah,
Sometimes it's hard to keep track of them.
yeah,
What was it, Magnum Force or something like that?
yeah. That was the second one. That's my favorite, by the way, of the Dirty Harry movies.
Dirty Harry, Magnum Force. What's the next one? Screw it, never mind. Just gonna sidetrack now. But
The next one would have been the one Mario was supposed to watch. So that was the Enforcer,
okay.
and I don't know what comes after the Enforcer.
I still say Mario knew exactly what he was doing. He just didn't want to watch that. He wanted to watch a Jet Li movie instead.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, Sudden Impact was the other Dirty Harry movie.
Okay, so now that we've done with what is probably the worst film I've ever seen as well.
Yeah. So what else is going on? What's in the news?
You
Anybody
watch
interesting die? Did you die?
Oh god. Did you see John Wick like I told you to?
I've seen John Wick before. I didn't watch it like today or anything.
I've seen John Wick before as well, as recently as 2 weeks ago. What?
That's the Keanu Reeves movie, right?
Yeah. What did you think of it?
Okay. Um, it's a very it, to some degrees it's an interesting film, and I liked the beginning of it and how they got his character into the situation that he was in. Um, I think that if he were as a badass of an underworld assassin or whatever he was, enforcer, whatever kind of mob enforcer that he was, the kids of Russian mob guys wouldn't have fucked with him the way they did.
Well, I don't. Well, I think that's the thing. They didn't know who he was because he was retired at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a gaydar. There's a wise guy dar that wise guys know wise guys, and it's a respect thing. And when you give respect, you get respect. And John Wick never disrespected these guys other than to not sell them his car.
Well, that's the thing. He wasn't acting like a wise guy at the time. Like he was so far removed from that life, or at least the depiction of it was, because he had been living with this woman who's the love of his life, and she'd been, in a sense, kind of domesticating him the way
Mm,
he does the puppy at the beginning of the movie.
yeah, okay, I can kind of see that. But there has to be a legend of this guy out there. It's like because when you look at real life guys like John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano, these guys have a legend, and Sammy the Bull actually was living in Prescott, no, not Prescott, somewhere in Phoenix, one of the suburbs of Phoenix. After he, turned state's evidence and ratted out the mob, and then instead of taking the deal to go into witness protection, he just moved to Phoenix because mobsters don't go where it's hot, apparently. And then he's actually in prison up here somewhere, so he's going to get out in I think 2016. Uh, so it's one of these things that they're still trying to kill him, and they're still actively trying to kill him. So you still know the legend of Sammy the Bull Gravano. You still know, Michael Francese, who got out of the mob and is the only guy who actually retired from the mob and didn't turn state's evidence and didn't get killed. He actually became a preacher or some sort of evangelist. So there's these guys that you know the names of in this lifestyle, especially in your city. So that's the one part of the whole disbelief thing that trips me up. Other than that and when he falls off of the balcony at the nightclub, lands flat on his back, gets up and walks away like nothing happened.
To counter your point about the wise guy are,
Yeah.
it, well, yeah, there could have been a legend about him, right? And there could have been circulatable, and this kind of touches on a point there that nobody brings up about the movie, or well, nobody's really kind of like focusing on, is that the coincidence, like the convenient coincidences for the film. Like, what are the absolute odds that that kid happens to, who's related to the mobster that knows exactly a mobster who was made by
By
uh, John Wick. What are the odds that they pass cross like that? Nobody actually does that or brings that up, or the fact that he brings the card directly to like somebody like John Leguizamo's character who knows exactly whose card it is and it's John Wick's, and then goes from there.
Well, to some degree, I can kind of see that happening.
The
The
Leguizamo thing.
Yeah, because I can see John Wick being all like, you know what? I know everybody who works the chop shop, so I know these guys know cars, and I know they're not going to fuck with my car. So anytime I need repairs, I'm going to take it to one of these guys, kind of a thing. You're not going to take it to a legitimate place, although legitimate place, quote unquote, may not exist in this world. But
Yeah.
I can kind of see it is odd that they take it to a friend of John Wick's. Like this car in this world is probably known, at least to the people who steal cars, because they know that's a car you don't touch. Okay,
Yeah.
you kind of know the cars you don't touch, and they're usually nice cars in moderate neighborhoods. You go into really ritzy neighborhoods and you steal those guys' car because they're not connected. You don't go into poor neighborhoods and steal their cars because their cars are shit, and you don't go into kind of the middle class neighborhoods because that's where all the mobsters are hiding, or usually. So yeah, it's like maybe the chop shop guys would have recognized this car and wouldn't want to touch it. Maybe not. But yes, you're right. It is kind of coincidental that they take it to the one guy that we see earlier in the film who's a friend of John Wick.
And beyond that, it all the other coincidences just keep springing up throughout the movie, like the other assassin, the female one.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because yeah, they have a history together.
They have a history together. They end up in the same hotel.
Mhm.
Just when the orders put out on, you know, John Wick, she takes it. All that, all these things that we're just conveniently disregarding because essentially they're not really all that important or integral to the plot line. This is a movie about visuals and a movie about tone
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and editing and just a great it's physical storytelling.
Yeah,
It's an action movie. It knows that, and it steers into it, and it comes out great at the end.
yeah. They're planning to do a sequel to this movie.
Which I don't like the idea of.
I think, well, they're probably looking at this as Keanu Reeves' version of the Taken trilogy, and I think that might be a bit
I
much because I don't think they're ever going to motivate the character the way they did in this first one.
I well, yeah, that's this first one is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, this to make it and turn it into something that and Taken is a successful franchise. To make it and turn it into a successful franchise in the vein of Taken lessens this movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it won't be as good as Taken. It'll probably be more transporter like than at
It's not even that. It's just that you have this like gem of a thing. This is like rubber. You
yeah.
have this gem of a thing. Leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I think there are some movies out there that no matter how much you want to see the story continue, you know full well that it shouldn't. And this could definitely be one of those.
Yeah. Like, how often do you want a Tarantino a sequel?
I don't think Tarantino's a sequel to any of his movies, has he?
Right, but yeah, do you want one though? Do you want to see what happens after True Romance? Sorry, True Romance. Do you
Um,
want a story about two white people living down in Mexico, one guy with only one eye and raising a child?
that might be
Boring as hell.
that might be the only Quentin Tarantino movie that could. Well, no, I take that back. He did do. Well, he did Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2, which was
Ah,
basically
that's
one
true.
movie. It was one movie that he split into two because he did so much to it. And there is talk about them doing a sequel to that where they filmed some footage with the kids while they were still young, and then later on they're going to film the rest of the film. But until that actually comes out, we don't have that. But it's like none of his other movies could be, well, maybe the Django. That's the only other one I can think of off the top of my head that could actually be made into a sequel because there's still something there. I mean, all the other movies, usually the characters are either die or are so screwed up that, you know, the rest of their life is going to be them in therapy trying to overcome what has just happened to them. So it's like there's not going to be anything there for a story.
There's a surprise for the tone and kind of like subject matter of his movies. There's a surprising amount of happy endings in his movies. Bruce Willis's character in Pulp Fiction.
There's happy endings to an extent. Like like in Reservoir Dogs, we don't know what happened to Steve Buscemi at the end because you hear gunshots and sirens, so you never know if he got away. But yeah, Bruce Willis's character does get away, and he does have a pretty happy ending. Nobody else in that movie really has a happy ending, though.
Inglorious Bastards.
Um,
Brad Pitt walks away the hero, and the girl gets revenge. And the two Jewish characters in Brad Pitt's platoon actually kill Hitler.
oh, do they actually kill Hitler?
Yeah, they go out in a blaze. They shoot him up at the end of the film. Remember?
I forgot that.
So
Um,
they go out like heroes. Everybody goes out like heroes.
okay, yeah, that one's a pretty happy ending. The Django, for the most part, is happy.
Kill Bill's character, she finds her daughter and kills the guy that ruined her life.
Yeah, but she killed Bill, and that was really sad. I know that was the whole point of the movie that she was supposed to do that, and it kind of I love the way he did it. That he made it a thing that she had to do, not a thing that she wanted to do, and that how charismatic Bill was at the end of that movie made it even more difficult for her to do it, but she did it, and I love the way they did that. And the ending is happy in the fact that she survived this whole thing. She got her revenge. She got her daughter back, but it's sad because she had to kill all her friends. And
None of it's. I never got any of that as sad. She was killing people that stabbed her in the back.
yeah, they stabbed her in the back, but that was the only family she really knew. And I know Ellie's character, the one with the eye patch, was a royal bitch. But the other ones, like Michael Madsen's character,
Only family she ever knew was the Sifu.
well,
The
no,
only person in that movie, other than Bill, who's manipulative in his reasoning,
yeah,
but the only person in that film that actually showed her any kindness, or except for the Hattori Hanzo character,
yeah. Well, the Hattori Hanzo character, the guy she was going to marry, and the
Shifu.
and the kung fu master kind of
Yeah,
he
Sifu.
yeah, but the guy she was going to marry too, and I forget his name. I don't even know if he had a name. That Bill and everybody else comes in and kills along with her. But it's like the Michael Madsen character was very remorseful for what they done. He still buried her alive, but he was very remorseful for what he had done, and he even said at some point, maybe she deserves her revenge. And he seemed like the kind of guy who probably had some sort of real connection with the bride, and probably felt very bad about what he did because of that connection. So his character, he does stab her in the back or shoot her in the back, however you want to look at it. But I think he did that kind of out of peer pressure, not out of survival or wanting to. And I think at the end he kind of conceded in dying. He just figured it was going to be the bride that did it and not the woman with the eye patch. And I think almost the same thing could be said for Lucy Liu's character, in the fact that, well, not Lucy Liu's character, the other one, Vivica A. Fox. That Vivica A. Fox was like, look, we did what we had to do, not what we wanted to do, but what we had to do. And then they do the fight scene, and.
None of those, at least for me, make them any more sympathetic. Like the only person that really kind of makes sense, is Lucy Liu's character, because the other one, Eye Patch, she's clearly stereotypical crazy bitch, and you see that in that kind of stereotypical character in other movies.
Yeah,
Whereas Lucy Liu's character, you actually read, you follow her story, and you have the rationale behind why she is as cruel as she is.
yeah.
So I kind of understand, that's the most satisfying storyline of those. But
Mhm.
other than that, there isn't any rationale in it that makes me any more sympathetic towards any of those characters, not even to Bill, no matter how charismatic he is at the end of that film.
Well, no, I never thought that he was sympathetic. I think Michael Madsen's character is way more sympathetic, but it's still very heartbreaking to see that because you he's such a nice guy that he's so charismatic that you kind of forget what he did for a second. And
Breaking,
I'm sorry,
breaking.
heartbreaking.
I heard breaking.
No, I think I said heartbreaking. It may have gotten anyway.
I think your sinuses are coming into play though.
A little bit. It's allergies and whatnot, but
Right.
But
Yeah, yeah. You were saying about Madsen's character that he was, of the victims, he was the most sympathetic. I, it's not enough, I guess, for me. No matter how remorseful he is at the end, it's still there's nothing sympathetic about that either. Because of all, he's the one that actually buries her alive.
yeah, I think out of all of it, I think his is the character I like the best, just because everybody else is more stereotypical, kind of, we're assassins, so what we do is we assassinate people. Whereas his was like more philosophical about the whole thing. And maybe that's where I find sympathy for him, is because he seemed more of a person who thinks about his actions rather than just, being stereotypical, like a trigger man.
And then well, didn't that come after that conversation? Come after he buried her?
Um, I want to say no, but because he was warned about her and her kind of vengeance ride, and that's when I think he said something to the effect of maybe she deserves this. Maybe he did say it after he buried her. I forget, but maybe he waxed philosophical about burying her and how kind of unjust that is. I don't remember. I thought it was before though. I thought he was talking with somebody on the phone, or and somebody was warning him that she was coming, and he said maybe she should come, maybe she should have her revenge or her vengeance.
If you really think about it, his is the most sadistic act in the movie, aside from Bill's manipulations. Like all the other characters are either trying to survive or they're just flat out trying to kill the bride.
Right.
He actually tries to make her suffer. He buries her alive.
Yeah, but it's kind of a soldier's training. You go through all this basic training to this pants wetting terror and fear in a controlled environment. So when you're out in the field, the instinct takes over and you know what to do. And I think that's kind of what they might have been trying to say with him, that even though he was remorseful for what he did, doesn't mean that, he's still not a cold-blooded killer. You
No,
know,
well, that's the thing. If he was actually just a cold-blooded killer, I could get by that. Like if he tried putting a bullet in her head, I wouldn't be making the argument that he's not as sympathetic as you as. Well, I don't find him as sympathetic as you do.
mm,
But he doesn't just try to put a bullet in her head. He goes through the lengths of actually burying this woman alive, even though he has her in the position to actually just kill her. He could have just easily have taken a gun, put her at the top of that box, and pulled the trigger.
this is absolutely true, but had he done that, then the movie would have been over.
Right, this is true, but it portrays him in my opinion, just he's one of the, as far as the least or the most evil characters in that. I think it's Bill, Eye Patch, and then him.
Okay, but
Oh well, he ties Eye Patch because Eye Patch is really less of a character and more of just you know
a stereotype, yeah.
a fight scene.
uh But in some ways, though, that's the brilliant of Quentin Tarantino's writing, is that he can he can do a character, and some people can say, not very sympathetic. He's just very, ruthless and torturous, and other people can say, yes, he is very sympathetic. And you can kind of understand why I'm saying this, even though you don't agree with it.
No,
And
yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
yeah,
I see where specifically the dialogue between the two, because that may be the best dialogue aside from what he says, what the bride and Bill say.
yeah, and that's the brilliant of his writing. He does this exposition, he does this character development in the guise of, actually getting a character to emote, and getting that actor to reveal something in himself, so that that character becomes three-dimensional, so we have a feeling towards him one way or the other. I feel sympathetic towards him, you feel that he's very cruel, but we have a feeling towards him.
Yeah,
Unlike the movie that we saw today, where the writing is so bad and the acting is so bad that we feel nothing for these characters. I don't care that, the husband dies because he's kind of being a dick, and he's being a dick because that's how the script was written, instead of him, you know, kind of thinking about it and saying, well, there was a lot there to play with too. I think he's got a new job, people coming down on him. He's trying to make a really good impression. He can't be leaving the job because he got there late the one day, and he can't be leaving early the next day because this jeopardizes their future together. And and I think they he could have played that a little differently and made the character more well-rounded and more sympathetic, but instead he went just for kind of being a dick. And that's kind of, the differences between a good movie like Kill Bill and a movie like this is that, and this is the first movie this director has done, at least the first IMDb credit that he's done. So it's like this inexperienced director didn't know how to get that emotion out of him, or maybe even what emotions he wanted to get out of him, or what he wanted that guy to do. Or maybe the guy just wasn't a good enough actor to be able to reach into himself to do that.
Clearly, the attempt there was the father from God. What was the movie with Ryan? They remade it with Ryan Reynolds. The about the haunted house.
Oh, Amityville Horror.
Yeah, clearly that was they were trying for the Amityville horror thing
Yeah.
where the possessed thing slowly drives the male lead crazy. But you know, I don't know if he dies at the end. Maybe it's a good thing he dies at the end because it sounds like you start to dislike the character by the end, and you want to see him dead.
Kind of. He's and they do these things too, where like, we see the refrigerator and what it does. So the wife says, "I want you to get rid of the refrigerator." And the guy's like, "Why would we get rid of the refrigerator? It's a refrigerator. It keeps food cold." And he comes kind of sarcastic about the whole thing, which is not a terrible way to go. But then Raul the plumber is like, "Oh, I'll get rid of the refrigerator for you." And then the guy, there's supposed to be some jealousy there. And the jealousy in the beginning seems to come out of nowhere because he comes home one day to see, a couple plumbers hanging out in his apartment being fed lunch by his new bride. And he gets jealous over that. And I think he gets a little more jealous about that than he should. And then by the time it comes to the end, there's no place for him to go. There's no ramp up to it. He's at this peak of being jealous. So when Raul says, "I'll get rid of the refrigerator for you," you know, the reaction we get is the reaction we expect. And that should have been when he went over the top with the whole thing and yelled at him, maybe even threatened his life. There could have been a fight scene between those two guys. You know, that actually would have been a good place to kill off Raul if they ever wanted to do that, and let the guy feed, you know, the refrigerator Raul. That could have been a way to go, and that would have been a little less predictable, I think. But it's like it's it
See that detail you just gave and how you fixed one problem thread throughout the movie.
yeah.
You fixed that, and there's still so much more that still needs to be done for this movie to be considered good.
Oh yeah, yeah, but that's kind of like the when we went through acting class, I think that was like one of the first things that they kind of talked to us about was like you start off slow and then you build on that. Everything, and that's not always the way to go. Sometimes doing peaks and valleys is good too, depending on the scene and what your character is going through. But it's like there are you don't ever want to start off at a crazed, ravenous point. You want to start off little. You want those little things to be noticed, but maybe not bother you, and then slowly start to bother you over time. And that's acting 101, and they didn't do that in this movie. And that and when you learn that, when you get told that, and when you see that in action, you're like, that makes so much sense. And then when you don't see that in action, you're like, wow, that's why this is bad.
Hmm.
And that was the thing. It's like there was, I think there was stuff there that they could have used and played around with had they been a better quality actor and or a better director that he could have been.
A better everything in this film.
Yeah, it's
Because
like
like look, I'm listening to some of the dialogue, and it just the script writers did not do any of the performers any favors here.
no, no, there wasn't. And that's one of the reasons why when I write something, I've told you before, you can play around with it, you can make it your own. And I'm fine with that because typically I want the emotion and the context more than I want the words. Every once in a while there's a phrase that I really want you to say,
Yeah,
and it's typically the phrase you don't want to say. But it's there's a phrase I want you to say, and we'll do it until you say it. But a lot of times, as long as you're giving me the intent, it's kind of like the law. There's the intent of the law and there's a letter of the law, and I want more the intent of the law. I want you to convey that emotion and make the audience feel a way for you, rather than you say the dialogue precisely. unless it's like a period piece, you don't really need to say the dialogue precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there were some things that they had there that they could have played around with that they didn't take that opportunity to. And yes, there was many opportunities that I think the writer missed to have some fun with the script and play around with it and make it better. And I think there were some opportunities the director, who was also the writer, missed in this whole thing. But if this is like straight out of college kind of a movie, his first attempt at doing a real movie. I mean, he did a real movie. Beginning, middle, and end, 90 some odd minutes. You know, mission accomplished. Good, bad, or other isn't always the point. Sometimes the point is just putting something up on the screen.
Well, let's call it what it is. It's just a you know bad film.
Yeah, but if and if you take a film like this, if you do a film like this and you realize it's bad, you listen to what people say, and sometimes critiques can be hard. I appreciate when somebody comes up to me and says, I didn't like this, and this is the reasons why. I dislike anybody who would just come up to me and say your movie sucks. If you can tell me why it sucks, then your opinion is valid.
You're
If
contributing.
you're contributing and you're teaching me what I need to do for the next one to make you happy. If all you can do is say that it sucks, if that's the only way you can verbalize it, then you're not giving me anything to work with. So it's like if he took this and ran with it and realized what he could do for the next film that he did or the next project that he did to make it better, you know, then it kind of served its purpose. It's a bad film, but it's also a learning experience. Of course, judging by his IMDb credits, he didn't do that.
Yeah, everything else doesn't. It doesn't sound amazing afterwards.
No, or Reading Rainbow, though a good show, is not really something that they look for in Hollywood.
Like, how would you even advertise it? Like, are you good with comedy? I did Reading Rainbow. How is that comedic? Are you good with drama? Like, I did Reading Rainbow. How is that any? What? Like, who exactly do you get a job for? Like, a job doing after Reading Rainbow, though?
Well, you spin it. You're like, well, I worked with LeVar Burton.
Oh, there you go.
That guy from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Oh, he's amazing to work with. You just don't ever say the project because he was in uh, Star Trek, and he did a great job in Star Trek, and he always complained, or the producers always complained because he was very expressive with his eyes, but yet they put that thing on him. So he had to figure out other ways of conveying everything he needed to convey, and he did a great job doing it. And also, he's in Roots. He was Kunta Kinte, and
He
and
was a Rouge as Kuta Kinte. I remember that.
and that is such a powerful role and such a powerful acting gig, and for a virtually unknown guy in a TV miniseries, he's fucking phenomenal. So he's one of those guys that I'm actually surprised you don't see in more things, because he would probably be a day player for somebody's project. He's probably pretty reasonably priced, but he would give you a hell of an acting performance.
Well, that's kind of the story of the rest of that cast, though, except for Patrick Stewart, who's done anything.
Um, uh, the guy who played William Riker, he directs a lot.
Yeah, he directs television stuff or directed DVD stuff. It's not like he took that opportunity and turned it in. He's not Ron Howarding it, basically.
He's not at that level, but he's making a career out of it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, they're working.
yeah, him and Deanna Troy do voiceover work. They do a lot of convention stuff, and it's funny because I actually talked to the woman who played Deanna Troy, Maria Sturitz. Um, I my first year at Comic Con was their was it my first year? I think it was my first year at Comic Con, was like their 20th anniversary of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So they had most of the original cast there, and I had the opportunity to talk with Maria Sturz for a little bit, and I invited her to see the movie that I did that was in the film festival. And it was a ballsy maneuver, and I figured she wouldn't come, but what the hell? I'll ask her anyway. And
She didn't, did she?
she did not, but
Exactly.
she asked me why she wasn't in my film, and I said,
As a
you know,
joke. As a joke, probably.
I said to her, And maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't. And I said to her that I figured I couldn't afford her, and she looks at me and she says deadpan, and it sounded very serious at the time, everything is negotiable. So I believe that if you offered her the right paycheck for 1 or 2 days worth of work, you can get her to be in your movie. And as long as there's probably no nudity in it, she'd probably do it happily. She's one of those actresses or actors that wants to work. And I think that anybody could go to anyone in the Star Trek universe, um, and make that offer to them, and probably get somebody with a bit of a name to be in your production. And if you look over the entire Star Trek universe, yes, very few of these people have actually gone on to anything other. Patrick Stewart has, Kate Mulgrew has. She had a bit of a career before she did Star Trek. Um, Avery Brooks had a career before Star Trek. He doesn't do much afterwards, but after I saw a documentary about all the captains and I saw him, and he's a little weird. He's a great actor, but he's very flighty and very artsy, and I don't know if I like him as a person or not yet. I haven't figured that out.
When we're done here, you're going to go back and you're going to edit all of that Maria Sturgis stuff out because I'm not going to have you on this show disrespecting Deanna Troy.
I didn't disrespect her.
Oh no, or encouraging people to offer Deanna Troy money to be on her to be in any project that they choose. Deanna Troy is a professional. Thank you very much.
Well, that's why you offer her money to be in your project, because she's a professional. That's kind of the earmark of being a professional. You get paid for your craft.
No, 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 no. She deserves better work, like legitimate work. Not and that's not to say that there isn't legitimate work out there amongst our listeners, but still, like studio stuff.
Are you familiar with John Travolta's entire career?
I honestly can't say that I have. I'm familiar with the high notes.
Okay, so that's kind of my point. So give me a second to go with this. So John Travolta had a career back in the 70s. He was on Welcome Back, Kotter, which was kind of his first thing, which kind of made him a household name. Then he went on to do Saturday Night Fever and then Staying Alive after that. And those were actually pretty big movies. Um, he uh, he had this wonderful career for a little bit of time, and then the 80s hit, and he kind of fell out of favor because the trend of movies moved away from what we saw in the 70s, especially with like the dance and the disco era. So he did the Look Who's Talking series as the dad. So he really wasn't the main focus in those movies, but he was a supporting actor. And then he kind of fell into more obscurity after that. And then Quentin Tarantino came around and gave him the job as Pulp Fiction, and it catapulted his career. So now he does stuff like Broken Arrow and Face Off and stuff like that. There was something else that he did in that time frame. Um, I forget what it is. Phenomenon, Broken Arrow, Get Shorty. So he has this resurgence in his career, then his career kind of drops off again, and then he comes back again. So it's like you kind of need that person to give you a shot. But until that person, that Quentin Tarantino comes around and gives you a shot, you still want to work and put food on the table. And even though Maria Sturz is probably getting mad royalty money from, Star Trek: The Next Generation playing, on basic cable and on Netflix all the time, I'm sure she still wants to hone her craft. So she will take a Look Who's Talking to bide her time until she gets a Pulp Fiction.
Right,
So
but
I do not, in no way, shape, or form am I trying to disrespect an actor
no, no, no. Okay,
by
okay.
saying somebody
You're
should
not.
give her a job.
No, no, no. You're not trying to disrespect her. That's not okay. Worded that badly, but no, you're trying to say that if you offer her a good paycheck, that she's probably going to take that job. Which, on the flip side of the John Travolta story, Google Butch Patrick. He was Eddie Munster.
Oh yeah, he fell out of favor real quick.
Well, he's taking a paycheck too, and he's in a movie called what is it? Frankenstein versus.
Frankenstein versus the creature from Blood Cove.
Okay, yeah, and I've seen the trailer for that. And
Well, that was
Alex,
2005 actually, but okay, go ahead.
Alex,
Yes.
the production value we put into text is comparable to this. I mean, that's how bad it is, and it leads to one of those sad stories you hear about Hollywood. You know, like the child actor that whose body they find in a building because he spent all his money and just OD'd and died there. That actually
Yeah.
happened. Google that. That's what happens when you know. And I'm sure again, this is probably just Maria Sturgis just joking around with you, but that's what happens when you start to just live on your fame and just kind of like not live on your fame, but kind of just start taking a paycheck after having been somebody once upon a time. Like when movie stars like wash out or TV stars like wash out, they wash out terribly.
They do, but if you get into like Sharknado, or if you get into one of these sci-fi things,
No,
you're
Sharknado's still a big deal.
yeah.
It's got the name sci-fi attached to it.
Well, I mean, sci-fi does a lot more than just. I mean, the Asylum does a lot more than just Sharknado. They've done like their Mega Shark series. They've
Well, no,
done
Asylum's a big name too now
yeah,
because of sci-fi probably, but it's a big name too now.
yeah. But they take these people who used to be big deals back in like the 70s and the 80s, and they give them a chance to work in their craft again.
Well,
To be on TV, to be on
well,
video, to be
let's be fair. Butch Patrick is not there to work on his craft. He's there because he needs the paycheck.
yeah. But it's like the guy who played Craig Brady in the Brady Bunch in the original 70s Brady Bunch. He was in one of those Mega Shark movies. Like Tiffany and I forget the other singer. They've showed up in a couple of these movies.
Well, no, again, those are done on sci-fi, so they're not as sad, and that's the foreboding thing for me is seeing Butch Patrick or any star doing something like something that you and I could probably do today. Like we could literally go outside with a camera and just shoot a film, and it'd be in the same level as Frankenstein versus the creature from Blood Cove.
Yeah,
Is that it? Yeah.
yeah,
When you see like a star doing something like that, or a former star doing, or once upon a time star, a fallen star, whatever, doing something like that, it's just for me, I get really, really sad seeing that.
yeah. But on the other hand, this gives people like us, who have done stuff, who have a moderate amount of talent, who hopefully someday will do something bigger than a short. The
Yeah.
the opportunity to get somebody with a name like Maria Sturritz or a Jonathan Franks or even to a little bit more of an extent the guy who played Data, Brett Spiner. All these guys who probably do voiceover work, do theater work as well as do movies whenever they come around. It gives us the opportunity to get one of these people to have a name in our movie to be able to hopefully get somebody to see the movie, and then we have a feather in our cap that we were able to actually work with this person. I mean, if I could get Maria Sturritz to be in a movie, you would want to be in that movie, wouldn't you? To act opposite of her.
Take a moment to actually think about that.
Exactly.
Well, no, I'm just
I mean, yes,
I'm not trying to say anything with this, but don't you think us doing that? Because I know it really, really feels that way when I see, especially with the Butch Patrick one, when I see that, or when I see anything that had Gary Coleman in it. It really just felt like it was taking advantage of somebody who was just really just trying to get by.
it's kind of a mutual thing. We have her in our film to make our film better, and her being in our film gets more people to watch it. I mean, we have her in our film, so she works and
But
she gets
you
a
you
paycheck, and then it kind of yes we're using her, but kind of no we're trying to get the best actors for our film.
well, you would we be doing it knowing full well that in her mind she really would rather not be here.
There's that possibility, yes, but
I because honestly, like if okay, so you're on a show for 10 years and
uh-huh,
it's amazing, it does amazing, and for whatever reason you go through a divorce, four divorces, whatever, it takes all your money away from you, and you just really need that paycheck.
yeah.
And then somebody you meet at a convention or a student filmmaker actually gives you a decent paycheck, but says, "Hey, you got to come out. Our budget is basically like people are working for free on this film. Like I got volunteers. What are you thinking in your head while you're out there doing that? And you read the script and you're going, yeah, it's not the same thing that I did for 10 years.
sometimes there's a couple of different ways actors can look at this, depending on their status in life. Yes, it could be something that's just a paycheck that they do that they don't put their whole heart into. That
Desperation.
it could be out of desperation. It could just be out of, I need coke and weed money for the night. It could be something like that. And it's Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez kind of pay homage to this, especially with their Grindhouse. Is that if you watch Planet Terror, Bruce Willis's character is kind of a day player in there. He's not seen with other actors, really. Everything is shot pretty much as a mid shot. It's a
Yeah.
bust of him, and it's shot in such a way to make him look like a day player. And they probably shot his scenes in like 4 days, and that's fine. He collected a paycheck. He worked 2 days. He can go take a vacation or pay for his car or, like I said, coke and weed money. Whatever he needs the money for, but that tides them over until another project starts or another project comes down the pike. And it's a double-edged sword because you do enough of those and now all of a sudden you're not worth the time of a big named actor. But on the other hand, maybe you really do need that money. And yes, it could be a case of, I just need the money, I'm here, where's my mark, what's my line, okay, I'm going back to my trailer. Or it could be the opportunity of, I know this may not be the best film in the world, but at least I get to act in something. I get a paycheck from it. Maybe this can be fun. Sometimes it's what you bring into it. Sometimes it's what the other person brings into it. But
Do
I,
do, do you think that a somebody who of because okay, since we're talking about Star Trek, somebody that can basically say no, I don't need to work, I can do conventions for the rest of my life, because that's exactly what God, what's his name, the director, Frakes said that. He said, like, yeah, these conventions, they paid off my Malibu beach house.
right, but is that what you want to do? I mean, if you had the choice between acting, even if it was in kind of crappy movies, but you still got to do what to act, or just do conventions for the rest of your life and tell war stories of the one time that you were in a TV
No,
show.
no, no, no. All right, sticking with that. If he could do those conventions,
Hmm.
and then say he had the acting bug hit him, 9 times out of 10, and I'm telling you right now, that person isn't going to do a student film or going to do a film that's a Frankenstein versus Black Lagoon or whatever. What they're going to do is they're just going to go to a theater company and go there.
Yeah, but you have to realize too that not every low budget movie is Frankenstein versus Blood Cove Monster. That there are some people out there that actually have some talent that should be going to these people to fill out their cast. Like I will tell you, last year I was actually in a movie, quote unquote, with Robert Patrick, the guy who played the T-1000 in the Terminator.
I'm aware of who he is.
Okay. It's a movie starring Robert Patrick, Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle, and Allison Eastwood, uh, Clint Eastwood's daughter.
Hell
Now,
yeah,
the
Frank.
the only person on set that I saw from that list was Frankie Muniz, and I was probably half a football field away from him when I saw him.
What's the name of the movie?
The name of the movie is called Hot Bath Stiff Drink 2, and it comes out, I guess, next year, although it was filmed last year.
Hang on.
I probably do not have an IMDb credit on this because I was just an extra.
Wait. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. You don't get those until you can get into SAG by just doing those, but
Yeah.
it takes like a while. You have to like do a bunch of them.
Yeah, I did it basically as a lark just because I wanted to go on set and play around and, you know, do stuff. So I'm not a featured extra, I'm just an extra, but I'm in the background of a lot of these scenes. And the guy, Jeffrey Patterson, who's actually the lead in the movie, you will actually see me walking past him several times. There's one scene where he meets somebody at a train station, and I'm standing right behind him as they stop and talk to each other. There's another scene where he goes into the bank as I'm coming out of the bank. So it's I'm in several shots with him. Whether I'm actually seen on camera or not is going to be completely, you know, a different story. But I was in this movie with him. So that's, a feather in my cap that I can say, hey, I was in a movie with Robert Patrick, even though I never saw the guy. He may never have actually been in town on the days that I was on set.
Do you know what the difference between the common filmmaker and the one that's doing this? Look up his IMDb page. The director.
Uh,
He may be he as different things like visual effects mentor, whatever the hell that is. But he's been involved in some pretty big stuff. This is not just some random like filmmaker out in you know Tucson, Arizona, for instance. This is somebody that's really involved in the industry over there. So when agents saw this before talking to their the Frankie Munises and the Robert Patricks, whereas this is Butch
well,
Patrick probably just took that sight unseen.
yeah. Well, here the movie Hot Bath Stiff Drink that he did basically on a shoestring budget. He got as much money together, the the bare minimum money that you need to make a western, and he made a western with it. And I have no idea what he did with that film. It probably went into the film festivals or whatever. Probably went straight to DVD. I don't know. I don't think I've ever actually seen it at Redbox or anything. But he made a movie, and with that, he was actually able to say, "Look, I'm going to make a sequel to this movie. I want a budget, and I want some names," and he was able to do that. So Robert Patrick, who is Robert Patrick, he's I would say
Who we probably know is from the X Files because this guy worked on the X Files too.
probably, yeah, but it's like I'd say Robert Patrick is a rung or two above Maria Sturritz, even though Maria Sturritz is a wonderful person. And well, I will gingerly say she's a wonderful person. I saw her talk, and that might be up for debate, but she's a wonderful.
Okay. Just for that last part. Now you really have to edit out all the Maria Sturgis stuff.
She's a wonderful actress, and I think Robert Patrick's a couple rungs ahead of her, and he does a movie like this, Hot Bath Stiff Drink, which who knows what will happen with this film.
No,
It
again, this is something hot. What was it?
Hot
Stiff,
Bath,
hot bad stiff drink.
yeah,
Again, this is still something an agent would see and actually say, okay, it's not the best, but it's a good job. Whereas other things like, you know, well, for instance, something we would do,
yeah,
like we're not going to send anything to an agent and they're just going to magically decide, yes, we're going to do this. This is something done by somebody who's heavily involved in the industry because his career goes all the way back to one of his early ones is Broken Arrow, which you just mentioned earlier.
yeah. But that's the thing. Like you take a script, you write a script, you send it to somebody to do coverage on it. If they like it and they know somebody in the industry, they can pass it up the ladder. So yes, theoretically, you and I could, if I wrote a script good enough that somebody thought, a a distributor or a motion picture company would be interested in, even if it's like, Fox Searchlight, which is their independent segment of Fox
Well,
Entertainment.
by the way,
And
I'm looking at the first one, hot bad stiff drink, the
mhm,
first, and this is also a case of somebody that made something really good on their own with no name people on it,
yeah,
and it took off. It's Kung Fury,
kind of, yeah. But
and then it took off, and that's why people are doing it now.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like just because you're low budget or just because
No, just
you're not studio doesn't mean that you don't have a good product.
no. You have a good product. I'm just saying that offering it to like an established star like a Maria Stewart, and again, please really edit all of this out, and I mean really edit this time because I read Coffee Cane's comment from that episode that I asked you to edit Coffee Cane out of. Why won't you edit these things out?
I did edit it out, and then I put it at the end.
Why?
It's like one of those Marvel post credit sequences.
Oh, just tell me you're going to edit all of this out.
If that will make you feel better, I will tell you that I will edit this out.
Are you actually going to?
Probably not.
I hate you. Ugh. Right, we're gonna drop this all together then, and we're gonna move to something else.
All right, so we should probably wrap this up.
Edit out all the Maria Sturgis stuff. I don't want people hearing us debating and arguing. This is supposed to be a happy, fun time show.
I'm pretty sure the arguing and debating is the most interesting part of the show.
You will edit it out.
And also, it's Sturritz, not Sturgis.
Whatever.
She's not a city in South Dakota.
Whatever.
That's descended upon by bikers.
You done?
Maybe. But anyway, so if somebody wanted to watch a horror film, would you recommend The Refrigerator to them?
I would recommend they masturbate instead.
To the refrigerator?
No, I said instead.
In the refrigerator?
I said instead.
In their own refrigerator?
I said instead.
Ugh, yes, instead. Okay. So we should make Mario write, since he didn't show up for this episode. We should make him write some sort of review or dissertation of The Refrigerator, and we can put it on the website.
I know, right? If he was going to force us to watch it, which I could not do, and that's saying something.
Right. And
Uh,
and
yeah,
for next week, since we've talked about it being action movie month for the hell of it, um, I actually chose a John Travolta movie because I was thinking about.
John Travolta.
Well, that's why
Ooh.
I brought up John Travolta today, is because I was actually thinking about his career and quite the turns that it has made.
Do you find yourself thinking of John Travolta often?
Only when I'm getting ready to take a shower.
Okay, just making sure. You could have picked worse. I mean, we're not talking about Tom Cruise here.
Well, well, I think he looks really good in the movie that I picked out for us this week, which is From Paris with Love. He's got that bald thing going on, but a goatee, so it's kind of like a vagina right there.
I've got to say, Have you seen the trailer for him in his new movie? Because he's somebody that probably didn't do all that much a lipo and or a Botox and surgery until now, until like recently, and it looks absolutely freaky.
Uh,
Like his face is dead.
is it Criminal Activities?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Uh,
Like it looks, it's Stallone and Mickey Rourke bad.
ooh.
I mean, his face looks freakishly like still. Like like I don't think he could move it if he tried.
I'll have to look into that. I don't know if that's the one or not. In a Valley of Violence, maybe that's the one.
It's one where he plays like an ex-con in New York who's trying to do right by his kid and doesn't. Because that's original.
Yes, of course. Huh. It's not American Crime Story, is it?
Could be.
That looks like a TV series.
No, wait, John Travolta's an American Crime Story?
That's what it says.
Jesus Christ, American Crime Stories. That's the one that was just on ABC that they were raving about.
He's in 10 episodes. It looks like Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in it too.
Oh no, wait, that's something else altogether. That's the FX series coming out about the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, does Cuba Gooding Jr. play O.J. Simpson?
yeah.
Dude, I gotta see that.
It's coming out. Wow, it's still waiting till next year. I thought they were done filming.
It shows that it's completed. It's just maybe they're just waiting for a good time to debut it,
Hmm.
or maybe it's not any good. Ooh, Selma Blair plays Kris Jenner. That is interesting casting right there.
It's a good cast all around. Look at it: Cuba Gooding Jr., Sarah Paulson, John Travolta, David Schwimmer, Courtney B. Vance, Nathan Lane, who I absolutely adore, Jordana Brewster,
Bruce Greenwood.
Selma Blair, uh, Malcolm Jamal Warner. I mean, it looks like a pretty good cast.
Yeah, this would be a good show. It's funny too because I think people really forget that the Kardashians stem basically are famous because of the O.J. Simpson trial,
Yeah,
because that was his daughters, the main lawyer's daughters, which is
I,
why Kris Jenner's in this.
I like the casting for Johnny Cochran because Courtney B. Vance does kind of look like him.
Yeah, Yeah, I was thinking that. I saw that picture.
Yeah.
Oh, Nathan Lane as F. Lee Bailey. That's kind of funny.
I'm trying to look up F. Lee Bailey right now. I don't know what he looks like.
Yeah, he actually does kind of look like Nathan Lane a little bit.
I just like Nathan Lane in everything in anything he does. Because Nathan Lane is. Have you seen The Birdcage?
Yes.
That is a tragically underrated film.
It's pretty good. It's for what it is. They did a really good job with it.
Not for
And
what it is, just a good film. I've never seen a movie just taken over by because nothing else in that movie is generally all that great. I mean, it's average at best. No, it's just average. I'm not disparaging anything else in that movie except for the performances by the two leads.
they did kind of run with that, and it's nice to see somebody being able to keep up with what's his face,
Robin Williams.
with Robin Williams. Yes.
I mean, it's just it's. I mean, it relies almost completely on just them and the dialogue because there's. I mean, there's the main conflict of the story and it's ever present,
Hmm.
but it's really the what encapsulates you about it is just their interaction with one another, just the way they talk to each other, just the way they're wordsmiths in this thing. Maybe not in vocabulary like they don't use like fancy $10 words or anything,
Right.
but just the way they use language in the film basically,
Right.
or the way they use word they give word meaning and how it makes me want to do theater more than I do because I really don't like live theater.
Oh, live theater is really an actor's medium.
It is, but I've kind of grown up. I probably should be a director more than I want to be an actor, but I film and television is where it's at for me
Yeah, no, I get that.
because I don't have I'm not I don't have to worry about the audience there. I just kind of have to worry about realism,
Right.
like living in that moment as opposed to actually conveying that moment to the guy in the back row.
Remember that scene that we did for our acting class?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just actually found that script today. Again, I was
Do
cleaning out the back room.
you want to do that as a short film?
Maybe.
I'm in.
I'll see what I can do. I've actually been looking up scripts to do a radio show. I found something and I'm looking into it to see if make sure that the copyright has expired on it, and I might do it as kind of a different podcast, more like a radio drama, which I think would be kind of cool. And when I'm ready to do that, I'll let you know about that.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll probably have to do it like you record cartoons, each actor recording their dialogue separately, which is going to be very difficult to piece it all together.
Mm.
But we'll see what happens. Anyway, so next week from Paris with Love, John Travolta and that Bryce person, whatever his name is. I totally blanked on his name.
Jonathan Rhys Meyers.
Jonathan Rhys Meyers, thank you. And for those of you who may just be listening in on us for the first time, why don't you head on over to our website, mof.ninja, where you can see show notes and see links to the movies we've been talking about and hear other episodes. If you thought this one was entertaining, you should hear the one that we talked about Rubber. That one was very entertaining.
It was.
One of the most entertaining ones we did.
I would have not have rather masturbated. I would have rather, and I did see the whole film.
Well, sometimes you can stop the film and go masturbate, and then come back to the film.
I'd rather just finish the film.
Okay.
If I got to masturbate, I'll do it afterwards. But
And if
if film's good enough, I will not tug and pulley.
And if you want other masturbating tips, why don't you go on over to mof.ninja and leave Jamal a comment asking him about more tips and his advice on how to masturbate and what the best techniques are.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
You never know. But anything else you need to add? We hope Mario gets home safely from Brooklyn in a timely fashion. I hear Monday would be the soonest he's able to get home.
So what? He's stuck in an airport in Brooklyn, so no sleep. Still Brooklyn.
They get out of Brooklyn, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you everybody for joining us, and you have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Join the makers each week as they discuss film, TV, and pop culture. To learn more about them, go to mof.ninja. This is Michael Caine saying goodbye.